Hello, and welcome to the War Room. I am your host, Dirk Hardleck. Sorry, ladies, I'm already married to America. You're here with me tonight because you're interested in a tale about America, and the great dangers that always face America. Well, have I got a tale for you, coming from the great author R. Lawrence. It is a gripping story of intrigue, espionage, and most importantly, defeating the enemies of America. So come and join me as we have a great read in the War Room. Chapter 1, Cortina d'Ampezzo, Italy. Like I need to worry about learning how to pronounce that. New Year's Day. The assassins hid behind a huge boulder above the timberline, giving them an excellent view of the ski slopes below. In the red parka, at the top of the Tofana Pist, the handler Rashid said, spotting the target first. He spoke in Arabic with a distinctive French inflection, his calm voice belying his excitement. Look to the right side of the slope. He's just inside the tree line, leaning on his ski poles and talking with the woman and her children. See him? Beside Rashid, Mustafa frowned as he peered through the scope of his rifle. Your binoculars have a wider field of view, he complained. His accent was foreign to Rashid, an African version of Arabic that fell heavily on Rashid's ears. In addition to disliking his accent, Rashid found Mustafa's facial tattoos, tribal markings apparently, distasteful. But Mustafa had a reputation as a skilled shooter, and he seemed dedicated to their mission. Big guy, blonde hair, Rashid said as he laid his Bushnell binoculars on the hood of their snowmobile and pointed. About 600 meters down to the right. Use my binoculars if you can't spot him. Okay, now I have him, Mustafa said, grinning. He's much bigger than I imagined. Good target. But there's a tree branch in the way now. I'll wait until he skis out to the first mogul, then I'll have him in my crosshairs. BIFF Roberts stopped at the top of the Tofana Run, enjoying the rest and the magnificent early morning view of Cortina below. The gondola had dropped them off at over 10,000 feet, and after traversing over to the pist, they were even higher. It was easy to get winded at this altitude. Let the youngsters go first, Patricia, Biff said. I doubt we can match their pace. Okay, Biff, Patricia said, smiling warmly. Patricia de Bartola was in her 50s, but Biff thought she looked better than most women 30 years younger. Like him, she kept herself in great shape. Another reason they were a great match. Biff was enjoying a rare break from work before the next big step in his career. After 4 decades in the CIA, he was about to take on his most challenging role yet, as the head of Langley's clandestine counterterrorism division. He was looking forward to getting started, but first, he wanted to spend time with Patricia and get to know her kids better. Watch out for ice on the downside of moguls at this hour, Patricia told him. It's so easy to catch an edge when you check and turn downhill. And although it's a black diamond run, it's really not too difficult if you control your speed. That's essential. Rest if you start to tire. Patricia could see from Biff's smile that he didn't mind her advice, but she realized she might be overdoing it. Don't do anything crazy trying to impress me, okay? She smiled to try and hide her concern. I know how you are sometimes. Maybe I do worry too much, she thought, but she was an expert skier, and this was a challenging slope. Biff was strong and athletic, and he told her he could ski. But could he handle this steep hill? She didn't want to jeopardize their holiday vacation with an injury. In retrospect, maybe she shouldn't have brought him up here. But the Tofana Chute was her children's favorite run, and the view was absolutely spectacular. She would just have to watch him closely. "You got it, lady," Biff said. "I promise to take it nice and easy." Biff didn't want her worrying about him today. Biff's work meant that he was often in danger, but this was time to relax and get to know her family better. Patricia glanced at her daughter. "Alessandra, I suggest you go first in case you fall. Your brothers will follow to pick you up." Her daughter remained silent, not taking the bait. "Right, Enzo and Donatello?" Patricia added. "You'll look out for your baby sister? She might be a bit rusty." Alessandra had given birth last year and missed the ski season. "Be sure to keep a close eye on her, okay?" "No problem, Mom," Enzo replied without hesitation, smiling widely. Unlike his sister, Enzo appreciated his mother's sense of humor, which was often half in jest, half in earnest. "Same old predictable mom looking out for her brood," Donatello said quietly beside Enzo, with the exact same voice. Donatello leaned on his ski poles, raring to go. They had both heard that refrain for years, to look out for their baby sister. "Yeah, right, Mom," Donatello said loudly. "No problem," he replied like a good son should, no matter his age. Their dad had disciplined them well. "Doubt we'll keep up with her, though. She's definitely the best downhiller in the family, maybe the town," Donatello reminded her, as if she wasn't cognizant of that well-established fact after all these years. Baby sister had been a top-notch ski instructor on this mountain and the winner of many alpine competitions before she married 10 years ago and started her family. Now the mother of 3, Alessandra still had a cult-like following of aspirant young female skiers in Cortina who stopped her on the streets for her advice on training exercises and hints on succeeding in timed trials. At Donatello's remark, Alessandra just politely smiled, shunning the time-honored family banter, and pushed off. She checked adroitly on the first mogul and swiftly weaved her way gracefully down the fall line, starting the 5,000-foot vertical descent to the Dolomite village in the valley below. Biff watched her glide effortlessly down the steep slope, darting through the moguls like a rabbit, changing direction unpredictably, but smoothly. "The whole scene is definitely like an edited Warren Miller ski clip," Biff observed. "Good show." "She's a talented skier," Patricia replied. She was clearly proud of her family, especially her daughter, and rightfully so. "She doesn't look a bit rusty to me," Biff complimented. "She still got it at 30. Hasn't lost a move." She nodded. To her sons. "Fucking cats. Real men don't have cats. Where did this cat come from? How dare it interrupt my reading?" "Okay, boys, go catch her if you can." Patricia laughed delightedly, realizing she hadn't been this happy in years. She had been nervous about having the kids meet Biff, but everything was going wonderfully. The brothers immediately set off after their sister, laughing. They were strong, athletic skiers, but lacked their sister's grace as she short-turned into the fall line, taunting them to catch her. "A classic display of sibling rivalry?" Biff suggested. "You raised some good kids, Patricia. Look at them go, having a ball." "Thank you. This is always a big part of our family New Year's tradition. They're trying to make an impression." They intend to test you out as a prospective stepfather, so heads up. Natural thing to do, I suppose. Biff smiled down at Patricia. You sure scored impressively with my family last week. Patricia had gone to Arizona with him for Christmas festivities. You turned Caroline's life around. Thank God. And thank America. Patricia smiled, pleased. She just needed some motherly TLC. I understand what she's going through. You gave her helpful insight, dear, Biff said. It's been a whirlwind experience introducing our kids, judging if they'll accept our relationship. Like you said, so far, so good. Less than a year ago, Biff's wife and childhood sweetheart, Mary Beth, had been gunned down by an assassin in place of Biff. Many years ago, Patricia's husband, the Italian ambassador to Israel, had been assassinated by Hamas while visiting Gaza on a peacekeeping mission. It was that shared experience of traumatic grief that had brought Biff and Patricia together so quickly and so intensely. His children, rather than angered at his finding love again so soon, seemed to understand all the more that life was short and precious and should be lived to the fullest. Patricia's kids seemed to want the same happiness for their mother. We better catch up with them, said Patricia. I see them waiting downhill for us, joking around. Look, they're waving to us to come on. Let's go. Try and keep up. Keep up with them? He grinned. You've got to be kidding. Well, let's try and not let them out of sight. You're next. I'll follow. She smiled, thrilled at the positive start to their family vacation and family introductions. After her family tragedy, she doubted if she'd ever be deeply happy again. Yet in Biff, she'd found someone to spend the rest of her life with. Someone who had experienced a similar misfortune. Empathy drew them together, and the whole was greater than the parts that bonded them. Be patient, Biff said. It's been a while since I last skied at Tahoe, and I'm not in your kid's class, believe me. But it's just like riding a bike, he added, smiling. He took off, bouncing off the first mogul, trying to imitate her kid's skillful execution of a check turn and hot-dogging it. Despite Patricia's warning, he immediately caught an edge on the mogul's icy downhill slide. Biff lost his balance and began to fall. His fall was a fortunate event, as it turned out. Just as he began to slip, a .223 caliber bullet ripped through his left shoulder, sending red fragments of his insulated parka flying. Groaning in pain, he crashed head over heels downhill between the steep moguls. Patricia noted the muffled sound of a gunshot fired through a suppressor from uphill an instant before Biff fell. Despite the silencer, the rifle's resonance followed him instantly through the clear mountain atmosphere. She had heard that unforgettable bap sound before, and her years of association with Mossad conditioned her response. She glanced furtively uphill at the ridge. She saw no one, but suspected more incoming fire. Had the shot caused Biff's awkward spill? It all happened too quickly for her to tell. Biff! He called, and she immediately skied to his assistance, not fearing exposing herself to danger. He could be shot, and she had to help him. Before the shot was fired, Biff's security detail was less than 30 meters away on the other side of the ski run, directly across from Patricia. They had arrived on snowmobiles rather than skis. Tim Cochran, Biff's CIA bodyguard and security guard, had been instructing the four-man security team, explaining to the two Italian intelligence operatives and two Italian commandos about precautions they must observe during BIFF Roberts' week-long vacation in Cortina with Patricia de Bartola and her family. Admiral Delaney, the director of the CIA, had made it very clear to Tim to allow nothing to disrupt Biff's ski holiday. The Admiral wanted Biff to enjoy a vacation before assuming leadership of Langley's clandestine counterterrorism division. The admiral had insisted on an even tighter security ever since Iranian mullahs had issued a death warrant fatwa on BIFF almost 2 years ago. This decree had resulted in several prior assassination attempts. "No more close calls," the admiral had ordered. "Take all security measures. He's a very valuable asset we can't afford to lose." Biff's security had already been a priority, and for his visit to Cortina, Patricia had arranged for additional security as a precaution. The gunshot caused a fierce, instantaneous reaction from the security detail. "Jesus Christ!" Tim exclaimed, interrupting his briefing. "Biff's down! Sniper on the ridge!" The security team had already had their guns drawn and ready. "He fired from his position at 11 o'clock, Tim added, pointing, "above the timberline. The shot came from next to the huge boulder, the one jutting out." "I'll go assist Biff and Patricia," Tim said. "You guys cover me, and then go after the shooter." Tim hopped on his snowmobile and drove rapidly across the trail to Biff. Tim could see Patricia huddled over him, hunkering down for cover between the steep moguls, helplessly pinned and still exposed to any more shots from the ridgeline above. Other skiers had figured out what was happening and were quickly clearing the scopes. Blah! I am filled with so much pride that I cannot speak. Actually, I may need a drink of water. Where were we? Other skiers had figured out what was happening and were quickly clearing the slopes, skiing downhill or back along the trail that led to the gondola. Salvos from the security detail's MP5 semi-automatics flew over the now evacuated slopes and hit the boulder uphill, covering Tim. Once they assessed Tim was secure, the four men started up the hill, 2 on each of the 2 snowmobiles. The passengers fired shots along the way at the boulder. "I'll go straight up the tree line, Luigi." Gino, the driver of one snowmobile, radioed to the other vehicle. "You 2 flank them to the right of the boulder and cut across the mountain escape route in that direction. I'll call for an evac helicopter for the wounded and a security chopper to join the chase." "Rather that, Gino," Luigi responded. "Be sure to give them our GPS. It's a big mountain. Can't afford to waste a moment." "Got it. Keep firing while we head them off at the pass." They sped uphill on their snowmobiles, firing their semi-automatic Heckler and Koch submachine guns. At the sniper's location, the constant barrage did not allow the sniper to return fire at them or their colleagues trapped on the slope below. "Foxtrot 1, Gino here," Gino said through the radio. "VIP down. Repeat, got an American VIP down on Tofana Pist. Coordinates 46 degrees, 33 by 4096 north, and 12 degrees, 3 by 49.85 east. Need emergency evac chopper stat. Dealing with a gunshot wound. Undetermined severity. On ridgeline near top of pist." "Read you." The response from Foxtrot 1 came almost immediately. "Requesting evac and stat for GSW. Coordinates punched it onto a computer. What's going on up there, Gino?" "Big time Whiskey Tango Foxtrot situation. Pursuing shooter at ridgeline. Less than 500 meters uphill. Sniper attempted assassination of a high-ranking visiting CIA officer who is down." "A sniper nailed a CIA officer on ski holiday?" "Sniper cleverly jumped us. Anticipate firefight, so request air support from a second chopper to stop the shooter from escaping across Tofana Ridge northwest of our present position. Shooter boxed in by cliffs off pist to the southeast. Suspect he's not a lone wolf. Probably has a handler acting as a spotter. They must have a snowmobile. Only way to access that area. Obviously they're armed and dangerous, so come prepared, pal." "Read you loud and clear, Gino. Some friggin' New Year's. We'll be in the air in less than 5 minutes with a couple of our best sharpshooters. Grazie. Over and out, amico. Up on the ridge, Rashid watched the target fall, but too soon. The American fell just as I fired, Mustafa complained. I winged him, but I doubt he'll bleed out. Shall we wait for another clear shot? Can't miss from this distance. You just did, you donkey, Rashid cried. Mustafa's likely non-fatal hit had blown their element of surprise. Rashid watched the woman join the target, and a man on a snowmobile rushed to their assistance. Not all infidels were cowards, apparently, but their bravery would cost them their lives. Our assignment is to kill this infidel, Rashid said, and we must not fail. They are pinned down now. Kill all 3 of them. An incoming volley of bullets interrupted their plans, forcing them to duck behind their granite boulder. The bombardment of 9mm caliber bullets sent fragments of rock flying over their heads as dangerous secondary missiles. Stay down, Rashid called out. Our target must have erased the security team. Judging from that barrage, we're seriously outgunned. I didn't anticipate this. We missed our chance to take him down unaware. Sorry I blew it, but the target fell as I shot. Mustafa's whining was grating on Rashid's nerves. Rashid forced himself to remain calm and focus on achieving their goal despite this complication. Forget it! Too late now! Rashid snapped. Their commander had warned them that this Roberts fellow had a reputation for escaping tight spots. Now we have another problem, Rashid added, surviving long enough to get another shot at him. I'll nail him this time, Mustafa said. Rashid could hear the motors of 2 snowmobiles growing louder as they sped up the hill, relentlessly firing at their position. Rashid knew they had no chance of taking the shooters out in their present position. For now, at least, they must run. Rashid, still keeping low, retreated towards their snowmobile, yelling, Let's get out of here! How bad are you hurt, Biff? Tim asked as he ducked down next to Biff. Tim checked Biff's carotid pulse with his left hand, his Browning 9mm ready in his right. Biff groaned. Patricia was crouched by Biff's other side, compressing his wound with her scarf. He took 1 hit to his left shoulder and he's still losing blood, Patricia said. It all happened so quickly. Keep up the pressure, Tim said. If you tire, I'll take over. His pulse is strong, although rapid. Can you move your arm, Biff? Tim quickly evaluated the extent of Biff's shotgun wound. All the while he kept his pistol ready, just in case. Thankfully, his men were shooting their automatics while in hot pursuit, keeping the sniper from firing on their exposed position. Hurts like hell, but I can move it, Biff said. I think the sniper just winged me as I fell off the mogul. I don't think he got nerve or bone. Chopper's on the way, boss, Tim said. I can hear it flying up from the valley. Tim could see that Biff was sweating despite the cold mountain air and in a lot of pain, but trying to tough it out. America! Good news, pal, Biff said. We're sitting ducks. Our security team is covering us and going after them. Hear that MP5 fire uphill? Yeah, quite a racket. Sure glad they tagged along. Biff grimaced as he inadvertently slid another yard downhill. Patricia sliding with him and still keeping pressure on his wound. The sharp pain in his shoulder radiated down his arm. He groaned as the next mogul stopped his skid. We'll get you to our hospital, Biff, Patricia reassured him. We have excellent surgeons there. You'll be fine. She was amazed they were both so calm. Thought they were, like, agents. Like, I thought they were trained for this kind of shit. Is that really that surprising? Really? Moments ago, they had been blissfully enjoying the family outing. Now they feared for their lives. Then again, he was quite accustomed to danger, so was she, though to a lesser extent. So why is she surprised? They'd both faced life-threatening situations in the past. Again, why is she fucking surprised? Good thing I fell off the mogul, Patricia. Oh, he managed a weak smile seeing her worried expression. He hurt her, but he wasn't afraid. He didn't know why not. He felt detached from reality. All that time in combat, and he'd never been shot. One casual ski trip and he was down, wounded. But why here, of all places? This vacation had been a closely kept secret. Someone must have set him up. Biff's admission that he slipped on the mogul answered Patricia's question about why he fell. She forced back tears, and he was wounded and still managed to make a joke. Even with security detail, someone had nearly killed him on a mountaintop, and he might still die. She gave a silent prayer that God and America wouldn't allow her to lose another good man. Hang in there, Tim said, back at his side. We'll get you safely out of here, boss. I know you speak from experience, Tim, Biff said, aware that Tim had been shot twice in his career. Never once on a ski trip, apparently. I'm just a first-timer trying to rough it out. Biff grinned weakly, trying to diffuse some of the tension. He noticed Patricia looked almost apoplectic with concern. Just tough it out! You got that right, boss? You know, I took a hit in Tel Aviv last year, and Iraq before that, and I'm still here. Tim patted Biff's uninjured shoulder. You helped me then. Now it's my turn. You'll recover, just like I did. Tim tried to reassure Biff and Patricia with small talk. Tim only hoped the sniper remained pinned down, unable to get off potentially fatal follow-up shots. Their security detail had failed to suspect, much less prevent, the assassination attempt. Despite his encouraging words, Tim was well aware of the stark reality. They were trapped in a precarious position, dangerously exposed, with no way to safety. Can't go back the way we came, Mustafa said. They hadn't gotten very far before Mustafa brought their snowmobile to an abrupt stop. The pursuing snowmobiles had split up a short time ago, attempting to cut off their escape. One now raced toward them from that direction, the passenger firing at them, but not yet close enough to hit them. We can't go downhill either, Rashid said. Another snowmobile was headed directly up the slope at them. Our only option is to piss off to the southeast. It was off pissed, but I couldn't resist. Sorry. Mustafa frowned. It's unmarked territory. I saw signs warning about dangerous cliffs. Cliffs are less dangerous than those heavily armed guys firing at us, Rashid retorted, as the men rapidly closed in. Go, now! Foxtrot 2, come in, Gino said. We got him in sight. 2 men heading southeast off piste in a black snowmobile at the top of the Tafana Ridge. We're in pursuit, but they're out of range. Another fucking person. Read you, Gino! Alberto answered. We've got 2 sharpshooters abroad. Not to worry. Bastards won't get away. Gino was glad it was Albert on the way. Alberto was a top pilot, known for being able to maneuver his chopper skillfully in the toughest conditions. That's cliff territory you're heading for, Gino said. Serious crevices, the damn fools. You're right. No hope of escaping now. They're trapped. Understand? Our ETA is less than 3 minutes. We'll close in on them together. He paused. Think they'll surrender? Doubt it, Gino answered. They're likely fanatics. I've been told the VIP who was shot has a bounty on his head. A death warrant fatwa. What the fuck is a fatwa? Alberto asked. Some Islamic thing issued by Iranian mullahs for some transgression the CIA guy Roberts supposedly committed, Gino said. Serious shit, man. They chase you to the ends of the earth. Like that Salman Rushdie thing in the 80s? Serious as they come, amico. They're big on creating maximum terror, like striking on the busiest ski day of the year. Bet we're dealing with nut jobs who won't surrender. During the briefing, Tim Cochran, the target's CIA bodyguard, had told the team the history on Biff and why a security detail was needed. We went a long time without hearing Biff's name. Roberts had screwed up several major Iranian Revolutionary Guard operations in addition to knocking off a couple of Quds colonels with Mossad's cooperation right in downtown Tehran. Tim had referred to them as covert, targeted assassinations. Roberts had become the recurring nightmare, so the mullahs issued a death warrant fatwa on him. Iranian agents had been after him for 2 years, but he had somehow managed to foil all of their attempts to kill him. This will provide lots of chatter for Katina's New Year get-togethers. This crap's bad for the town's brand. Not chic or dignified. Alberto laughed at his own joke. No kidding, man, Gino replied. This is right out of a movie. The VIP from Langley is here with Patricia de Bartola. The guy's some kind of international legend. We've got to bring these guys down if we want to keep our jobs. Consider it done! The former ambassador's wife is involved in this mess? Yeah, apparently Patricia de Bartola and Roberts are an item now. Our job is to protect them, and we've already screwed up. No more snafus, okay? Gino paused. I can hear your chopper now. Coming over the Tofana de Mezzo peak at 11,000 feet as we speak. Got you spotted. Okay, Alberto. Got a visual of your chopper now. Direct the base from the air and will keep us on track. No way those bastards will escape that terrain. Where the hell are we? Mustafa said as he brought the snowmobile to a halt. He scanned the remote wilderness for signs, but saw none. Just a few scattered old cabins and shelters. There were no trails to escape on either, just rocky crags and seemingly endless snowdrifts. We're lost! That's where we are! Rashid said grimly. He couldn't see it yet, but he could hear a helicopter closing in. And we're in big trouble if we can't elude them somehow. Rashid knew there was little chance of escape at this point, but maybe they could at least inflict some serious damage before they were done. Better switch with me so you can get a shot off, Rashid said. Maybe you can bring them down by hitting a critical section, or the pilot. Okay, but I thought you weren't experienced at driving this machine. There are a lot of snowmobiles in Beirut, Rashid replied scornfully. But would you rather be dead? Shooting them down is our only chance. There's another fucking person. They're in the black snowmobile heading for the cliffs, Vince the co-pilot said in the pursuing helicopter, directing Alberto's attention. They're changing drivers. Over by that crag at 9 o'clock. Just past that old shelter. Now they're taking off again. I see them! Alberto feared the chopper, rapidly closing in on that direction at low altitude. Alberto could tell the bastards didn't know what they were doing, driving in that terrain at such a reckless speed. Almost on top of them, Vince said. Spot him yet? Shit! Alberto suddenly saw a man with a rifle pointed right at them. He's going to fire at us! I'm altering course! Look out, Vince! Alberto made a rapid course correction, changing the chopper's profile, making it tougher for the shooters. Get ready, sharpshooters! Alberto commanded. Firefight going live! Quick, take him out as soon as I reposition the chopper! Roger that, came the reply from the rear of the chopper. Door open, setting sights, locked and loaded. Stand by! A .223 caliber bullet whizzed through the helicopter's front windshield, barely missing Alberto. The heavy aeronautic plexiglass shattered and went flying through the cabin, driven by the bullet's impact and a 70-knot icy wind head. The bullet ricocheted and tore through the roof with a loud clang. Alberto quickly assessed the damage, relieved to see the bullet had missed any vital structures. He turned back to check on his co-pilot. Glass fragments had lacerated Vince's cheek and shattered his aviator's sunglasses. Bright red blood streamed down his face for a few seconds, but quickly froze in the sub-zero air. The air rushing through the large hole where the windshield had been hastened the blood's coagulation. Alberto thought the co-pilot looked like some ghoul in a horror movie. The helicopter rocked and lurched with the sudden turbulence. The aircraft listed and began to spin. A less capable pilot might not have been able to recover, but Alberto skillfully regained control as it lurched dangerously leeward, avoiding a fatal pitch at this low altitude. He was good, but one thing even he couldn't do was fly a helicopter upside down. That was close, Alberto said. You ready, Vince? Are you okay? Gonna live, Vince answered. Gonna live, Vince responded again, correcting his context, tossing his ruined shades aside. Steady the bird more. She's still rocking all over. Let's get this over with, Alberto. Kill the fuckers. Hurry! Alberto ordered his two riflemen. Take those bastards out now, guys! In case I lose control! No, I am. Truly, this is a great tale of America. Move towards 2 o'clock, one sharpshooter replied, and we'll nail them. Roger that, Alberto said, as he quickly responded to their request. Doing my best to hold her steady. The sniper was aiming at them again, getting ready to shoot and bring them down. I'll take one guy on the right, you go left, one sharpshooter said. His partner answered, Roger that, on 3. The chopper's sharpshooters fired simultaneously, mortally wounding the sniper before he could fire again, and seriously injuring his handler. Alberto watched, still steadying the chopper, as down below the handler lost control of the snowmobile and it zigzagged wildly toward a deep crevasse. Gino and the ground security crew arrived on scene in their snowmobile, just as the sharpshooters took out the would-be assassins. They watched as the black snowmobile careened over the cliff and disappeared from sight. Both guys slumped over in their seats, one dead and one dying. Catch that, Gino! Happy trails! Alberto cheered from above, watching the villains plunge over the precipice. Truly, we have beaten the villains! The snowmobile caught air before falling spectacularly over 1,000 feet between jagged peaks and into an abyss of deep snowdrifts. There was a dull thud as the impact sent a plume of snow splashing 30 feet into the air. Snow doesn't splash. Unreal, Gino said, laughing. Like something right out of an action film. But now, You'll need a mountaineering team to dig them out for ID. That'll be a rat fuck, Alberto.
Need a new windshield first. Experiencing control problems.
Alberto's tone grew serious.
Too dangerous to fly this whirlybird in this condition. Besides, we're freezing our asses off. Bastard almost took us out with a direct hit. And Vince is hurt, but not critically. Promised to fish them out before sunset, collect evidence, and get bodies over to forensics lab ASAP.
Yeah, better get moving. The big shots will be clamoring for information. The sooner you retrieve the bodies, the better. A lot of folks will be looking over our shoulders, guaranteed international attention and scrutiny by the spy agencies.
Bet your sweet ass,
Alberto answered.
It's supposed to snow tonight, so we'll get right on it.
He checked the clock, seeing that it was only 10 o'clock.
I'll change helicopters and pick our search and rescue crew. We've got a good coordinate read locked in on the crash site. Back in a flash as soon as I get Vince to a doctor.
Sounds like a plan.
By the way, Gino, got any more VIPs coming to town? Not our usual New Year's Day. I gotta say, you sure provided some excitement for Cortina's holiday crowd.
Who the fuck was just talking?
Yeah!
Alberto said, because he wasn't talking before. Somebody else was, but we didn't say who. God damn it.
This episode will get them buzzing for sure. Just hope our asses don't end up in a sling. That CIA hotshot better not die.
Chapter 2. Instituto Codvia. Putti di Cortina. Early the next morning. Where am I? Biff mumbled as he attempted to sit up. Still groggy from the anesthetic for yesterday's emergency surgery, and in a pharmacological daze from the continuous tit-rated IV drip sedation, he couldn't move easily. The added challenge of a very painful shoulder made the simple act of sitting up a chore. He stopped trying to raise himself up and looked to the side instead. Squinting and bleary-eyed, he managed to read the notation on the IV bottle connected to his arm by a long plastic tube. A red narcotic label printed with a warning in large letters read, "Morphine sulfate." Biff soon recognized that he was confined to a hospital bed with the side rails up. He surveyed his surroundings through his tranquilized cloud, trying to recall what had happened. Daybreak seeped through the partially open Venetian blinds on the window beside him. Outside, pine trees rustled in the wind, the moving branches making the sunlight flicker through the room. The dim light revealed a small, austere hospital room. The walls were white, without artwork, and no flowers or decorations brightened the room. Hospital? Lackluster, spotless white tile floors added to the unfilled impression. Mental ward? Minimal stainless steel furniture further rendered a Spartan effect of emptiness, a feeling that corresponded with his mood, and literally no hospital ever. Biff thought it could easily serve as a CIA interrogation room. The pungent smell of disinfectant filled his nostrils like smelling salts, making his eyes water. He stifled a sneeze, not wishing the chance jarring his wounded shoulder. He fought to think clearly and figure out what had happened. Last he recalled, he had been on a mountain, skiing. He shifted slightly, and a sudden stabbing pain in his left shoulder jogged his memory. He'd been shot. He looked to the left and saw a huge bandage covering his shoulder. A surgical suction drain protruded from the bandage. connected to a bedside machine emitting an annoying gurgling sound. His left arm was further restrained in a sling with a large ace wrap pinning it across his chest, preventing any useful range of motion. He tested his grip, moving his fingers, gratified his left hand wasn't paralyzed. "Thank God I'm right-handed," he commented to himself. He squinted in the dim light. The drainage suction bottle contained 40 cc's of fresh, reddish fluid, according to the calibration on the side of the small plastic device. Electronic monitors next to his bed hummed and beeped intermittently, emanating eerie yellow-green and red digital glows. LEDs recorded his vital data continuously, the numbers vaguely familiar to him. If he didn't move, the pain was simply a dull, constant ache, deep inside his left shoulder. Something he could deal with. After laying there for a few minutes, he finally realized he was stoned. The morphine creating a detached, almost euphoric feeling. It was a strange sensation, almost like he was looking in from the outside. He was happy that he was alive. It could have been a much worse New Year's Day with him ending up on the wrong side of the grass. Or in this case, snow. He remembered more details what happened. Ironically, the awkward split-second fall in the mogul had caused the shooter to miss what would have otherwise been likely a kill shot. The margin between life and death in this clandestine world was thin. He knew that while he lay in this hospital bed, colleagues in his covert world continued fighting the shadowy wars, risking their lives, putting it all on the line for their country. With some good fortune, due caution, and ingenuity, some would survive like him, but many wouldn't. He realized he'd simply lucked out yesterday morning. He looked up at the ceiling. The fan above him whirled slowly, methodically, an almost mesmerizing motion in his present state. Biff realized that his sedation was affecting his ability to think clearly, but his basic analytic nature forced him to try to put things in perspective and figure it all out. He inhabited the espionage world by choice, developing the essential skills to adapt to a dynamic, challenging environment. Outcomes were determined by competition, guile, and ingrained resilience linked with exceptional skill. Some of it was instinctive, but much of it was learned on the job. Only the fittest survived an international spy jungle, controlling the unpredictable events as best they could. Few CIA undercover field operatives survived to his age, and even fewer ever reached his leadership rank. His CIA role represented triumph in the ultimate Darwinian environment of the covert field operative. And, as yesterday proved, it also included a great deal of luck. He'd experienced many close calls, but this was the first time he had actually been shot. He'd felt the pain, saw his blood streaming, soaking Patricia's scarf. Once seemingly invincible, he realized his vulnerability to his enemies, his mortality. If he was a religious man, he would have prayed, but he was agnostic. After a second thought, he took a moment to thank God and America. He wanted to hedge his bets, just in case. It reminded him of the old military adage that there are no atheists in foxholes. As the ceiling fan twirled, he reminisced to his training days at the farm. The farm emphasized human intelligence, or HUMINT, which was basically the recruitment of spies by exploiting human frailty. Now, I know he made that up. That is not an actual thing. If it is, it's still stupid. They pushed understanding what drives people to render classified information, money, ideology, revenge, ego, or sometimes self-preservation. Understanding the enemy was a basic tenet taught since the ancient time of Sun Tzu, the great Chinese warrior. Every man had a weakness to probe. The skill required intuition, integrity, deception, sometimes betrayal, and an overuse of adjectives. Betrayal. That word lingered in his consciousness, prompting deeper reflection. Did somebody betray his presence in Cortina? Outside of Patricia and her family, only a select few knew of Biff's vacation plans. Who had tried to kill him? Who had betrayed him? Biff had adapted the critical element of self-awareness emphasized in Sun Tzu's doctrine to an uncanny degree, assuring his exceptionally long survival and value to the CIA as a field operative without peer. His career spanned 4 decades of conflicts. Currently, he was involved with the seemingly never-ending war on terror. Persistent, dangerous asymmetric threats were popping up in the Middle East when it appeared withdrawal from the area was conceivable. The world was in turmoil. Even Africa had showed a recent surge in Islamic jihadism. His mind rolled through the list of foreboding scenarios, like a computer database, itemizing the multiple conflicts threatening global stability. Currently, the rise of radical jihadists, particularly the homegrown variant, presented a mounting problem. The major problem was that sleeper cells and recruited extremist U.S. nationals were difficult to identify. Citizens, or legal immigrants in an ethnically diverse country, could hide, like an undetected malware virus infiltrating the machinery of daily life. Indiscernible in a free society, democratic open societies were particularly vulnerable, relatively soft targets. Does this guy not like America? The indigenous terrorist militias' indoctrinated beliefs defied reason, and their nefarious missions were incomprehensible by civilized norms. Radical Islamists had declared war on free societies with no intention of observing Geneva Conventions. As the incoming director of the CIA's counterterrorism division, Biff's job was to thwart their nefarious schemes, and he planned to do so with a vengeance. When he assumed his new role at Langley later in the month, he developed a comprehensive strategy to counterman this emerging imminent threat. Over the years, he'd honed his leadership skills. He knew the players, the stakes, and the contingency game plans. He could handle it. He'd spent a lifetime preparing for the challenging job. He also possessed the essential gift of compartmentalizing sticky moral issues like rendition and enhanced interrogation. If done for the greater good, he rationalized that the ends justified the means. He was able to tuck away moral contradictions, all with plausible deniability. He signed up with the CIA to live on the edge, with no margin for error. Keeping the mission paramount, with all other considerations secondary, allowed him to function in his high-capacity, high-risk job. Recently, he had focused on 21st century cyberspace programs. And including concepts of complex cyber warfare, and the clandestine satellite and internet intelligence system programs run by the NSA, and his immersion into the sophisticated drone, UAV, sphere, working with the agency's special project staff, had introduced a new paradigm, a quantum leap, forward. Predator drones were the CIA's Air Force, extremely successful and risk-reducing in their targeted missions. Young officers in secret control centers, miles away from the action, directed the recon and attack missions with surgical precision. Their strategic role in modern warfare minimized risky Zero Dark 30, SEAL operations, and conventional air and ground attacks. However, in special cases that justify the risk, special ops remained essential to obtain live intelligence from the intense interrogation of captured enemies. When was this written? Recently, BIFF had mastered, with NSA guidance, some of the tenets of digital intelligence. He'd particularly focused on enemy recruits, or assets with access to passwords and encryption codes, and knowledge of data storage systems, firewalls, computers, or control systems that might be hacked or compromised. He also had a working... Jesus Christ. It's a male Mary Sue. Holy fuck. He also had a working knowledge of the intricacies of computer viruses, worms, and Trojan horses. He was well schooled in zero-day exploits and up to snuff on the intricacies of 21st century cyber warfare that used sophisticated electronic innovations to disable the enemy with minimal risk. Yet, BIFF still liaised successfully with top-notch spies in allied agencies and covert black ops, including targeted assassinations, operating in deep, dark sites when a mutual objective coincided. He had cultivated valuable relationships that would come in handy in the future. Over the past 10 years, counterterrorism had become his primary focus, as opposed to learning how to do literally everything else. In a world filled with existential threats, there's your fucking title, he personally represented an imminent threat to a foreign government, Iran. Once the hunter, yesterday he was the hunted, the target of an assassin's sniper bullet, and there was a good chance Iran was behind it. Intent on eliminating him for his co-conspirator role with Mossad in the targeted assassinations of 4 essential Iranian nuclear scientists, coupled with his collaboration in the Stuxnet cyber attack on the Natanz uranium enrichment facility, the mullahs had issued a fatwa on BIFF 2 years ago. They had been relentless in pursuing him, and he had eluded them until yesterday. As a consequence, he was now their poster boy for retribution, his cover blown. When they failed to kill him on several prior occasions, they had resorted to brutally assassinating his wife in San Francisco the previous year. Reprisals were becoming a vicious cycle, and unpredictable events the norm. Fortunately, they had failed to assassinate him yesterday, but no denying they were getting closer, and they had wounded him this time. Why did it happen so far from home while on a rare holiday? For him, and not on a mission. This wasn't line of duty. Or was it? Most importantly, how did they know he was there? How? He uttered out loud. The sound of his voice bounced off the walls, with no one there to hear. His ruminations were interrupted by the sudden entrance of a heavy-set, somewhat masculine-appearing nurse. She wore a heavily starched uniform, a size too small for her bulk. This disparity immediately suggested a ruse, possibly a man in drag. BIFF was always suspicious, and transphobic, misogynistic, and literally CIA Jesus Christ. An odd-looking nurse's cap with foreign insignia on it sat askew on her large head, crowning graying hair tied in a tight bun. She moved awkwardly, too. In BIFF's presently drugged state, her weird, shuffling gait suggested she was stalking him, about to pounce. She had a look of disgust on her face. A sudden, alarming thought occurred to him. Was this another assassin? He was defenseless in this hospital bed, wounded and unarmed. It would be a perfect way to finish him off. Her granny glasses were down on the brim of her crooked nose. Crooked, just like her cap. Her cheeks were flushed, highlighting her puffy, porcine face. It would have been comical if not for the menacing mood she projected, magnified by his paranoid, drugged state and complete vulnerability. She trudged ponderously toward him, her steely eyes glaring at him, her expression unquestionably hostile. His pulse quickened, and his breathing became shallow. He broke into a cold sweat, trying to think of a contingency plan. She paused to reach into the pocket of her smock. She started to reach in the pocket of her smock, but paused. Usually helps to do it in that order. He instinctively recoiled, expecting her to pull out a weapon. "Do you need anything?" She spoke in a deep baritone voice. Guess we gotta go with the theme here. Elevating Biff's fears. She then reached into her smock, scowling at him for not responding. Biff knew he had run out of luck, and there was nothing he could do about it. He resigned himself to the fact she was about to kill him. He looked down at her hand and saw she held a harmless glass thermometer. She asked him again in a demanding fashion if he required anything. Relieved she hadn't pulled a gun and shot him point blank, Biff remained speechless. He took a deep breath. He'd misread the situation. She was not an assassin, just a very unpleasant nurse. Her voice and attitude suggested he was an inconvenience to her busy schedule. Like, all nurses. The nurse was in fact resentful that her day had been interrupted, and by an American no less, because everybody else fucking hates us. Apparently. She harbored a lifelong bitterness against Americans, of course she did. As a child, in her father's ski hostel in Austria, some American tourist had insulted her by calling her fat and ugly. She had carried a huge grudge ever since, because everybody else is petulant and petty. Now this American had come to their pristine town and brought a lot of violence. Things like that could tarnish the town's fine reputation. Damn Americans were always causing trouble wherever they went, acting like they owned the world. "Would you kindly help me sit up?" Biff asked, finally managing to speak. "Not without Dr. DiNardo's permission," she responded gruffly. "Now turn over," she ordered. "I need to take your rectal temperature." "I can't. Sorry. My shoulder injury prevents it." Her demeanor made Biff's mind flash with an image of the battle-axe Nurse Ratched in Ken Kesey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It would have been easier to just say Nurse Ratched. We know where she's from. "Turn over," she demanded again. Biff declined again and wondered why it was such a big deal to raise the head of his bed. He read her name tag, Gertrude Fogelsong, RN. Her name wasn't Italian, so she was most likely an Austrian from across the northern border, not far from Cortina. He was also well versed in ethnicities based on names. Soon after his arrival, he had read about how people from Graz provided hospital and resort help during the high season in Cortina. He resisted a sudden urge to tell her to fuck off. He was uncomfortable and definitely not in the mood for a hassle. "I must take your rectal temperature," she persisted, undeterred. "Not gonna happen, lady," Biff said, using the generic term, but thinking in much stronger profane terms. It's required. Now turn over. He dug in, turned off by her abrasive attitude, and how long is this gonna fucking go on? And emboldened by the pain meds. You're not gonna stick that glass thermometer up my ass, no way. Got it? I'm no game-o. You're not very cooperative. I must inform your surgeon, Dr. DiNardo. Fine. I'm sure that tidbit of information will make his day. I will also tell him you are rude. Do you really think I give a rat's ass? Look, I've been shot and I'm having a bad day. You're making it worse. What's your excuse? Surely there are other patients you can share your misery with. So run along, Gertrude. Her face flushed with indignation. She gasped, glared at him a moment, and stormed out in a huff. America. Keep people in mind. As she opened his door to leave, he saw an armed military guard peering in and frowning, clearly wondering what was going on. Biff leaned deeper into his pillow. Glancing at his monitor, he noticed that his pulse rate and blood pressure were now quite high. His agitation had snapped him out of his subdued state. He checked the time, discovering his Rolex Submariner wristwatch was missing, and replaced by a hospital ID band. Another frustration to deal with. Fuck it, he thought. He'd lost it on the nurse, which was out of character for him. Exhausted from the ordeal of the last 24 hours and the unpleasant encounter with a less than compassionate nurse, he drifted off, pissed off at the world. An hour later, he awoke from his nap with the arrival of his surgeon and an entourage of medical personnel in pristine white coats over their light blue scrubs. The surgeon had 6 subordinates in tow, no doubt lined up by rank and responsibility. Dr. DiNardo presented a pleasant contrast to Nurse Fogelsong. He was an impressive, handsome figure, resembling an industrial-sized Leonardo DiCaprio in scrubs. He immediately apologized for what he termed the disturbance, and promised to replace Gertrude immediately. His pleasant bedside manner indicated he would like to leave the matter there and move on. How long will you keep me in here, doctor? Biff asked. 3 to 5 days, if there are no complications. The bullet took a big chunk of deltoid muscle out of your shoulder, but fortunately missed bone, your rotator cuff, and critical neurovascular structures. I debrided devitalized tissue and drained the wound to help prevent an infection. The doctor scanned the bandage and surgical drain, apparently satisfied with what he saw. You're also receiving prophylactic antibiotics, Dr. DiNardo continued. You lost about a unit of blood, but did not require a transfusion. In 48 hours, I will change the dressing and remove the drain. If the wound looks good, you may be discharged in as soon as the next 2 days. You'll need to come back late next week to have the stainless steel clips removed. Biff nodded. And then, how long till I get back to normal? With rehab, 3 or 4 months. You're strong for your age and in excellent condition. Your prognosis is good. Good to hear. Thank you. Now can somebody help me sit up? Dr. DiNardo smiled and moved to the end of the bed. He pushed a button on a panel and Biff's upper body was slowly elevated. Would you like another pillow? The doctor asked. That would be great. Thank you. You're welcome. The simplicity with which the bed was raised made Biff question why the nurse had made such a big deal about it. By the way, Mr. Roberts, the doctor asked, do you mind if I ask whether you ever visit Las Vegas? Sure, I have on several occasions. Do you gamble there? No, never have. Interesting. I just don't like the odds of winning, Biff said. Why do you ask? Well, you justified the odds. 1 inch in either direction, and the bullet would have either vastly changed your life or killed you. Maybe on your next trip to Vegas, you should give it a whirl. You are one of the luckiest men I have ever met. The surgeon smiled pleasantly. He turned to go, paused, and looked back. I almost forgot. This is Miss Lorento. One member of the entourage stepped forward, a younger and far more pleasant-looking woman. She will be your new nurse and attend to your every need. Again, I'm sorry for the disturbance this morning. His replacement nurse smiled as she came over and patted his hand. I'll take good care of you, Mr. Roberts. I assure you. Let's start with a hearty breakfast. You can call me Cynthia. Sounds good to me, Cynthia. I'm up for that. Things were starting to look up. Chapter 3. Hospital Visiting Hours. What kind of fucking chapter name is that? Later the same day. Throughout the day, a stream of visitors dropped by the hospital to check on Biff's condition, interrupting his catnaps. His nurse, Cynthia, gently shook him, saying, Visitors, Mr. Roberts. Through his narcotic fog, he recognized Patricia and her children. Everybody was jubilant, all excitedly talking at once, but nothing he could make out. He heard what he thought were greetings in Italian and English. Clearly they were rejoicing that he would recover without complications. Biff could see that for Patricia's children, yesterday's assassination attempt had brought back memories of their father's tragic death. But their resilience prevailed. Patricia had conditioned them to face adversity, and they were handling it well. Good morning, everyone. Biff finally managed, his speech slow and slightly slurred. Excuse me. I'm just filled with so much patriotism for Biff! Patricia gazed fondly at Biff. Though she'd never say it, she thought he looked haggard and disoriented. She wondered if it was the stress of being shot at, or if he was being given too much morphine. She made a mental note to ask his surgeon to cut back the morphine. She'd learned Biff rarely took anything stronger than Advil. She went to his side and kissed him. How are you doing, big fellow? She asked cheerfully. She tried not to telegraph her concern about his condition, the anxiety of almost losing him, or the guilt she felt for inadvertently exposing him to danger on the ski slope. I'm higher than a kite, he grinned. It only hurts when I laugh. Which luckily never happens because I'm a man. How are you and the kids managing after my little fatwa tiff up on the mountain? She noticed he slurred his words slightly, but thankfully he could still communicate. Absolutely. And he was obviously glad to see her. Her children respectfully stayed in the background, giving them a private moment. Stay in your lane, kids. You shouldn't joke about it, Biff! She sighed, unable to hold back from expressing her feelings about what had happened. I almost got you killed taking you up there to ski, exposing you to a sniper on a wide-open mountaintop, she added. Only divine providence in America saved you. Or poor skiing technique on my part, he quipped. I used to handle kick turns off moguls. Patricia's expression remained serious. Please stop joking, she said, taking his hand. Even our security detail was taken off guard. The snipers got the drop on us. I don't know how, but they did. I could have gotten you killed too, Patricia. Biff squeezed her hand. Granted, I was the principal target, but I've no doubt they would have shot you too. I warned you when we got together 6 months ago. It's dangerous to hang out with me. Yesterday was proof. I appreciate your concern, but I very much want to be with you, regardless of the risks. It was bad judgment on my part to take you up there, Biff. I'm so sorry. I never dreamed they'd come up with such a complex plot. would they know about our plans? That's unsettling. He shook his head. No clue yet. Yesterday was a black swan occurrence. Not my first, unfortunately. She frowned. Black swan? We totally underestimated the risk of an improbable, extreme event. Black swan. Who would have anticipated an attempt on my life up on a mountaintop while skiing? He paused. I've been trying to figure it out, but I'm having difficulty putting two rational thoughts together, and I keep falling asleep. He smiled at her. Don't beat yourself up. Unfortunately, this kind of stuff is the story of my life. She noticed, despite being a bit out of it, he maintained his iconic humor, much like his hat, ignoring his dismal circumstances. And after what he'd been through, he still appeared reasonably coherent. He was trying hard to be nonchalant. Too hard, she thought, which wasn't like him. Biff was a special breed, not unlike Kaidan operatives she'd worked with and knew well. The elite operatives responsible for eliminating Mossad's enemies possessed the same capacity to compartmentalize and insulate their stress, a key survival mechanism. She understood Biff's situation quite well, having faced similar harrowing experiences in Israel because of her Mossad connections and colleagues. After Hamas had assassinated her husband, she had been recruited and trained by the Israeli intelligence agency. Her expertise and role as a senior consultant for regional affairs for the International Energy Agency made her a valuable asset, fulfilling a special contract work as needed for Mossad. Channeling her grief into her new role had helped her recover from the tragedy. She was good at managing adversity, but she never wanted to duplicate the trauma she'd been through. She couldn't lose another man she loved to the same fate. We'll figure out in time. Just rest and get well, okay? She kissed his forehead. On another note, I heard the authorities got the assassins, she added. Crazy fools drove their snowmobile over a cliff trying to escape. Can you believe that? They fucking got shot. They were dead. Tim will fill you in on the details this afternoon. She tried to sound upbeat, hoping to reassure him. Nothing really surprises me anymore, Biff said. Too bad they couldn't capture them for interrogation. Doesn't work. Interestingly enough, Tim said the same thing. It is a company thing. Grab them, put them in the penalty box, and interrogate the hell out of them. No. You know the routine. Sometimes enhanced interrogation is justified to get vital intel. No. I confess I've been there, done that, and it didn't work. You get nothing from it. It's been proven. Like, proven. It's definitively proven that it doesn't work. They get nothing out of it. This is horrible. This is stupid. But I suspect you already know about this shadowy bit of my work. Patricia nodded, marveling at his spirit. Despite being wounded, sedated, and looking absolutely exhausted, he was still functioning like a covert agent. The doc said I'll be out of here in a couple of days, he continued. I feel bad I haven't spent much time getting to know your family, what with my being fucking shot. I need to catch up, and I am sorry they had to witness that episode on the slopes. Patricia smiled. Even at a time like this, he was thinking of her and the kids, too. They're adults and accustomed to tragedy, she said. They've learned to manage. I'm just happy we both survived. Agreed, but still, I'd like to get them to know them better. Have some fun with them before returning to the States. Biff was trying to take the focus off the shootout, not wanting her to feel any responsibility for yesterday, what with her basically going out there to get him shot. It's all her fault that two Arabic people went and tried to kill him. Fucking bitch. Lingering, bitter analysis of hypothetical what-ifs weren't his bag. He had signed on for this hazardous profession and accepted the challenges and risks that came with the job. He took his lumps as they came, although this has been his closest call yet. "That reminds me," Biff said. "I've got to let my kids know what happened and that I'm all right."
"I've already taken care of that, dear. I spoke with Caroline this morning and reassured her you were recovering well. I said you'd call as soon as you stopped taking your heavy pain medication."
"How's she handle the news?"
"Quite well,"
Patricia said, thinking how glad she was that she had gotten to know Caroline better the week before in Arizona. It had made the call a bit less difficult.
"She sends her love and looks forward to your call."
"And Boo?"
"Your son is a trooper. Said it would take a small army to eliminate you. He asked that you call when you're up and around."
"Sounds like him. I really appreciate you taking care of this. I didn't want them to find out through the news." Patricia nodded.
"The good news is that the mayor, Italian intel, and the CIA are putting a lid on news reports. But there's no way to discourage rumors. It's caused an uproar in town. It'll get out eventually."
A soft knock on the door interrupted their conversation. A rotund, immaculately attired middle-aged gentleman made a dramatic entry. A handsome, manicured mustache dominated his wide, friendly smile. This is Poirot. As he rushed over to greet everyone. Okay, no. He conducted himself with impressive, natural elegance. Definitely not. His effusive greetings bordered on theatrical, like a famous Broadway actor entering stage right. All that was missing was thunderous applause from the adoring audience. He went from person to person, kissing them, clearly genuinely enthused to see the De Bartola family. "Patricia! It's so good to see you again, my dear," the man said. "Please introduce me to this fine gentleman who has suffered such great misfortune at the hands of those scoundrels. I profoundly apologize for a security lapse, Mr. Roberts." Despite his sedative fog, Biff attempted to size him up, wondering who the hell this guy was. Biff wondered if this man could utter a word if his hands were tied behind his back. He struck Biff as a bit of a self-aggrandizing showboat. But Patricia quickly countered his initial impression. "Biff!
This is Signor Giovanni Galante, Cortina's mayor for the past 30 years. He attended university with my husband and was the best man in our wedding."
Of course he was.
"Giovanni is also Donatello's godfather." Of course he is. "He was the one who coordinated your security detail with Tim. He's expressed his regrets to me that things didn't go well on the mountain yesterday. He's very sorry, I can assure you."
Giovanni nodded, thinking that mortified was a better description, but he refrained from expressing it. Biff realized he had prejudged the man without foundation. Obviously, Giovanni was the social lion in Cortina and dear to Patricia's family. "Unfortunately," the mayor said, "my top security team was not attuned to the assassin's cunning scheme in time to prevent your injury, my dear man. I sincerely apologize and regret this dreadful occurrence spoiled your visit to our usually tranquil village. This incident is unprecedented. I assure you that Dr. DiNardo's team will speed your recovery. He's a fine surgeon, one of Italy's best." The mayor gently patted Biff's good shoulder to emphasize his point, smiling sincerely. "Patricia is much too modest to inform you that this surgical pavilion, where you now reside, was constructed through a trust fund set up by her late husband," the mayor continued. "Dino was the major benefactor to our hospital. He was the smartest investment banker in Rome before he became ambassador to Israel and put everything he owned into a trust fund. Only the Vatican made more money. We used to tease him. We'll never forget his generosity. He was a great man, a great loss, to our country, and this fine hospital is a testimony to the man. They are taking good care of me here, Biff responded. Thank you, Mayor. Frankly, Biff didn't know what else to say. Patricia appeared slightly embarrassed by the mayor's private disclosure and over-the-top praise. She seemed hesitant to join in the conversation, deferring to the mayor. Then again, it wouldn't be easy to get a word in edgewise during the man's effusive discourse. Yes, he was a great man, the mayor said, smiling. With pleasure, I've watched Patricia's children grow up, marry, prosper, and raise their own families. Giovanni then turned to Patricia's children. He engaged them in conversation, asking about their lives. Still groggy, Biff listened as the mayor spoke first with Donatello about his work. Donatello had followed in his father's footsteps and was the executive VP of Wealth Management Operations at Banca Monte del Paschi di Siena. Okay. It was one of Rome's most prestigious financial institutions and one of the oldest banks in the world, which his father had run for years. Donatello's younger brother, Enzo, had moved to Zurich to manage international funds at Credit Suisse for private companies and tycoons. Patricia had told Biff proudly that he was moving up the ladder as an international investment banker. They talked briefly with the mayor about his banking work. Lastly, the mayor spoke with Alessandra, asking about her husband, a famous Spanish artist. They lived, that's what it says, they lived in Barcelona, where she ran his studio and cared for their 3 young children. The mayor talked to all of Patricia's children like a proud uncle. The mayor finally turned back to Biff. I must run along now and to attend to municipal business. If you will excuse me, but I wanted to pay my respects. I hope we can share an evening together under more pleasant circumstances before you return to the States. Let's plan on it, Mayor. Patricia will organize it, I'm sure. I look forward to it. Thanks for dropping by. The mayor left with the same debonair flair as his entry, exhibiting his trademark patrician panache he'd taken years to cultivate. Cortina adored its mayor. Patricia and her children clearly loved him. Biff reserved judgment. Once the mayor was gone, Patricia told Biff more about him. Gio had no children of his own. Her kids had become Uncle Gio's surrogate family after his wife had died in childbirth and the infant had succumbed as well, because I guess this just pile tragedy on tragedy. That's good writing. Okay, sure. Devastated, he had never remarried. Biff understood even more now why the mayor and Patricia's family were so close. Soon after, Cynthia came in to check on Biff and read his vitals. Everything fine? She asked, smiling. Sure. When's my next meal? A strong appetite is a good sign. I will go ahead and get your dinner ordered right away. She hurried out. For the next hour, Biff chatted with the family, keeping the conversation light and pleasant until he abruptly fell asleep in mid-sentence. Patricia smiled as she watched his eyes close. He had been a trooper thus far. She wrote him a short note, collected her brood, and headed home to check on their grandchildren. The maid and au pair had not called, so everything must be fine at the chalet. Dinner should be waiting for them at the chalet. Biff was snoring when Patricia quietly shut the door. She instructed the armed guard, "Keep an eye on him." "Yes, Miss Bartola. I will see to that." Later, after a nap and tasty pasta dinner, of course, Italy, Biff started to perk up. A doctor had dropped by to cut back his pain medicine, adjusting the IV titration level of sedation. Biff soon felt much better. He remained comfortable and started thinking more clearly. His restored focus was a good thing, because Tim arrived with some interesting news along with his dessert. Tim was a good spy as well as bodyguard. While he hadn't foreseen the assassination attempt, Tim had impressively stepped up during the crisis. "How you doing, Biff?" Tim placed the small tray with a covered dish on the table beside his bed. "Hanging in there. Doctor says I'm going to live, but I almost got smoked yesterday." "Close call," he grinned. "What's that?" Biff added, eyeing the tray. Tim lifted the lid. "Tiramisu!" "I'll take it," Biff said. As Tim handed him the dessert, Biff asked, "What's the skinny on the investigation into the shooters?" "You look pretty fit to me a day after being shot." Tim pulled a chair up beside the bed. "Surgeon said I'm damned lucky. I'd inch either way and it'd be a different story. So, what's up?" Biff dug into the tiramisu. "The Italian special agents working it are pretty sharp, Biff. I'm impressed." "Tell me about it. I can't wait to hear all of the details. I've been in La La Land for morphine until about an hour ago. Patricia convinced the docs to cut back on the sedation, so now I can think straight." "The investigators are getting the job done in record time," Tim said. "Search and rescue mountaineers retrieved the two shooters' bodies at the snowmobile crash site. They collected all the evidence and were out of there by noon yesterday." Biff nodded approvingly. "Very efficient, I should say." "They took crime scene photos, the whole routine. They turned the bodies over to their forensics division, who performed FBI caliber work." "Any prelims?" "Yes, very interesting. You'll love this. They suspect the sniper is North or West African. A black guy with tribal scars of some sort. Described him as looking like a badass." It's on the official report, too. "African tribal scars? Strange. Thought it was just the Iranians after me." "Guess that's not the case anymore. Middle Eastern folks don't have tribal scars. This dude's from Africa. Both guys had beards and hairstyles suggesting a Muslim affiliation. Probably Islamists." Really? There's a Muslim hairstyle? And a Muslim beard? Is there an official beard of Muslims? Really? Okay. "The other guy fits the usual assassin bill. Most likely Middle Eastern, but not Iranian. Looks like those posters of most wanted terrorists at Langley." Biff smiled at Tim's reference to the CIA photo gallery of bad guys. Jesus Christ, you don't have to tell me. I get that. I figured that out. I'm smart. I promise you. I figured that out. This is just like that other book I read. "Could they get a positive ID?" "No ID on them. No cash either. Must be stowed away somewhere. Most likely in town, wherever they hold up planning this caper." Caper? It's a fucking assassination. An assassination's not this jaunty little attempt to kill somebody. "Agreed. Prints, photos, and DNA of the men were taken by the forensic lab here. Forensics sent pertinent info to Interpol and allied security agents. The standard operating procedure. An intel blast, classified APB. Home station is following our standard protocol to ID these guys and identify the network that sent them here. All that's in the works. ISI may be our best bet to track them. They keep close tabs on Muslim extremists, almost on par with Mossad. I hope they contacted them. Biff finished off his dessert and put the plate aside. Do we still have reliable Pakistani intel and cooperation within ISI? We do to some extent. They play both sides of the street against each other. Their communiques require verification to rule out disinformation. NSA is good at sorting out that aspect, but it's a starter. Tim nodded. I'll make sure ISI is in the loop. Meanwhile, police detectives are checking all town lodgings, showing their photos to managers and desk clerks. Eventually we'll discover where they are hiding out and probably find some credentials. Right. They had to get into the country with ID of some sort. I doubt they skied or parachuted into the rugged mountains around here. They didn't seem that sophisticated. Also, passport ID is required to rent a room in Cortina and most major resorts in Europe. So I assume you're pursuing that line of investigation? Right on! You got it, Biff! Tim paused. Listen to this interesting tidbit about the weapon they nailed you. All ears. The sniper rifle gives us a potential lead. I guarantee they didn't bring it from home. The gun is not in their Muslim armament inventory. What? Muslim armament inventory. These are not things. They can't be. This is the stupidest thing I've ever fucking heard. It's a connoisseur model gun. Really? How's that? It's an Austrian tactical rifle. Compact, lightweight, a Steyrmann-Leica model designed for scout missions by mountaineer troops. Handy, used in deference to their standard SSG-69, a heavy-duty 2,000-meter sniper rifle used by Austrian Special Forces firing NATO rounds. Caliber of this small rifle? Rifle shoots 223 caliber metal jackets, holds 5, old-style bolt action, very accurate at 600 meters with a scope. This gun was equipped with a high-powered Zeiss scope and suppressor. Surprised he missed the kill shot. Thank God and America, I fell. You got karma, boss man. Both men laughed. It was an inside joke at Langley that Biff's karma explained his many narrow escapes. We suspect the other guy they took out of the crash site was the sniper's handler, the spotter. He doesn't need to explain it to him. He fucking knows. Tim continued. He was in the driver's seat when the snowmobile flew over the cliff. Sort of like that Thelma and Louise scene. The way our Italian security team described it to me. It really cracked them up. Good guys to work with. Got a sense of humor. Must have been spectacular seeing them sail through the air. You were there. They tell me it was absolutely surreal. So, tell me about this handler. Was he the spotter? That wasn't in there. I just threw that in because you have to explain it. Biff! Forensics first identified him as Persian, not Arabic in origin. I thought they were both African. Why is that an important distinction? Biff asked. And how did they reach that conclusion? Because he carried a PC-9 Zoaf 9mm semi-automatic pistol. Incidentally, never fired. A PC-9 was the standard issue sidearm for Revolutionary Guard Iranian officers. So is he Iranian or is he African? But the story gets better. No, it doesn't. Tim continued. Listen to this. Coincidentally, the investigative team has a young Iranian-born hotshot detective. His family sought exile in Italy after the Iranian-Iraq War in the late 80s. Got to the point they couldn't tolerate the mullah's theocracy and the oppressive Sharia law they installed, which Israel actually recognizes in their courts. Sharia law. Just so you know. This Iranian expat has been with the Italian Special Unit for 15 years. His boss, Gino, another Gino, informed me that he's vetted, trusted beyond reproach. Even sends money to support his old country's Green Party in Tehran. So the upshot is, this Iranian hotshot, Dariush, somebody or another, swears this bad guy is not Persian, but definitely an Arab. Probably Lebanese, judging from his physical characteristics. Are we just gonna do every fucking Middle Eastern country at this point? I mean, really? How can he be so sure? This guy lived in Beirut with his family for 3 years while awaiting Italian immigration papers. He says he would recognize a Lebanese in any Arabic crowd and be able to pick out an Iranian in the same crowd. Gino says the guy is an expert at differentiating regional origins and we can take it to the bank. Seems he's got the certain knack and he's their expert on the extremist players in that region. Knowledgeable in counter-terrorism. Darius claims this second guy is odds-on a Lebanese terrorist and smacks of Hezbollah big time. I'll take your word for it. Biff was familiar with Hezbollah and Lebanon's bellicose terrorist history because of course he was. He's done everything else. Great at everything else. Why not this? Did you know Beirut was the site of one of the deadliest early terrorist attacks on Americans back in 1983? What happened again? Tim knew Biff was a history buff. Apparently a Yale thing. During the Lebanese Civil War, back in the early 80s, the French and the US were the major peacekeepers in the war between Christians, backed by Israel against Muslim extremists. A sensational suicide attack was carried out by terrorists in a hijacked water truck. The truck was loaded with 10 tons of TNT explosives and crashed through the peacekeepers' barracks gate, blowing an 8-story Drakkar building off its foundation. Can you believe that? I can't imagine that much TNT. No way! The explosion was the largest non-nuclear detonation on record. Biff said. The driver, an Islamic jihadist, killed around 300 French and US Marines, plus support personnel housed in Beirut's French barracks. We shared quarters with them back in '83, long before your time with the CIA. We also had a dark site there at the time. I might add that our operatives failed to anticipate the surprise attack right under their nose. You've been around, man! A long time. The Marine barracks suicide bombing by Shiite Muslim terrorists was one of our first major experiences with Islamic terrorism. These radical Lebanese Muslims, the Islamic Jihad, were the precursors of Hezbollah. Subsequently, Iran and Hezbollah were implicated in the horrendous terrorist attack. President Reagan and the French pulled up stakes and left, just what the terrorists hoped to achieve. Okay, now I recall that bit of history. I was graduating from the Naval Academy way back when. Interesting historical parallels. We never seem to learn from history, Tim commented, amazed at Biff's acumen. Very true statement. Biff nodded. Like Santayana said, those who cannot learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Shut the fuck up. We stepped up our clandestine activity too late to avoid the disaster. Bad intel. Someone dropped the ball. Biff shook his head, but sorry for the diversion. Please continue with your briefing. Wouldn't it be a debriefing? You were saying Dariush links this Arabic assassin with the Zoaf pistol to Beirut, implying a tie-in with Hezbollah? Yes! So do you see where all of this is going? If Dariush is correct, you've got a new line of fatwa executioners to deal with. And Hezbollah is also pursuing you. Gotta admit, the story strongly suggests a conspiracy. A tip-off that Quds, the terrorist arm of the Revolutionary Guard, is involved directly. If they know these things, why are they, saying it this way? It's like an anime where they have to explain everything. It's like, everything's exposition. They're the Quds. We know who the Quds are. We've explained it. Or is Tim just stupid? But is it reliable? I think Dariush is dependable. He asked if he was reliable, not dependable. Splitting hairs, but still. His team swears by him. You raise an interesting point, though. Why wouldn't they go after you themselves, like prior attempts on your life? Not certain, but the Revolutionary Guard is occupied with Syria right now. So probably outsourced the job, I suspect. Maybe Italy has tight travel restrictions on Iranians. A critical link in this case is the pistol. No one buys a Zoaf on the open market. No one. Really, no one. No one would ever do that. Fucking fools. It's not a popular sidearm. Iran provides arms to Hezbollah, so it could fit nicely with the fatwa theme, which is what I actually planned for my next birthday party. But how do you explain a Lebanese Arab hitman handler and an African shooter? I mean, how do you? It's kind of like a sitcom. A Lebanese Arab hitman and an African shooter. I had a joke and I lost it. How do these two guys tie in? Don't know! Strange arrangement! Except they both are radical Muslims carrying out fatwa. They share a common cause in wanting to kill you. A symbol of what they love to hate. America. Biff paused to reflect on that comment. Think Hezbollah is now affiliating with Akim? Why would Akim want a dog in this hunt? The Hezbollah leader Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah seems preoccupied with maintaining the Shiite crescent, thwarting Sunnis, still reporting Assad against the rebels. Why would he digress to align with Muslims in Africa? No clue, Tim said. Hezbollah, the army of God, is everywhere, Biff! Maybe they're branching out to North Africa, he added sarcastically. Remember, they did a terror job in Argentina. Biff said, you gotta wonder about these friggin' terrorists always scheming. It's kind of their thing, that they're terrorists. The common thread is Islamic terrorism. Terrorism comes in all different forms. It's not just Islamic. You're really reaching here, buddy. They confuse a religion with a political movement, because that has never happened with any other religion in the history of humanity. Just Islam. Their behavior is not rational. Like shooting up and firebombing abortion clinics. Especially when it involves my fatwa. Imagine calling in outside help. Hezbollah? Biff shook his head. The symbol on their flag tells you something about their mindset. What's the symbol? An AK-47. How did he not know it was an AK-47? This is supposed to be, highly trained operatives. How would you not know what the AK-47 looks like? How? Not exactly a sign of a pacifist movement. Hezbollah is hardcore Shiite jihadist. Maybe he's never seen the symbol. Yeah, I know, but still. I mean, it's supposed to be trained. Is this guy the only guy who knows everything? Really? Hezbollah is hardcore Shiite jihadist, while Al-Qaeda represents militant Sunni Islamist mujahideen. Sure I said that right? They're juxtaposed secularly, but both prefer AK-47s as their weapon of choice. And both radical groups conduct ruthless terrorism in the name of Islam, as opposed to, the very fluffy, embracing kind of terrorism done in other religions. Switch pages on me. To them, we're infidels who must be converted or eliminated. I've called it a crusade in reverse. That's an actual crusade. There's no reverse of the reverse of a crusade would be living peacefully with people and coexisting with them. That's a reverse crusade. A crusade is it's a very specific thing that goes only one direction. If these two established terrorist groups start aligning with African Islamists, that's an alarming development, Tim. Another existential threat on our TCI's list. Just name dropping the name of the book the whole fucking time. A matter of grave concern. I agree. An AK-47 on their flag. Never knew that. You really suppose Quds is outsourcing their hit jobs now? Probably involves multiple considerations. I don't think Italy encourages tourists from Iran, so the IRGC wisely arranged for low-profile contractors from another country to do the job on me, choosing a circuitous route, employing someone not likely to arouse suspicion, like tourists coming in from Dubai. You said one of the assassins appeared Middle Eastern. Arabic? Yes! The UAE would be an ideal launching pad for this operation, wouldn't it? I think you may have a point. It'll be interesting to see what passports they traveled under. What about the snowmobile? Any lead there? They traced it to a local vendor who recognized the shooter's photos. Rented 3 days ago, they paid cash and made a handsome deposit in euros, so he didn't ask for ID or where they were staying. The proprietor easily remembered them, added that they had an attitude, bad vibes, said the black guy with facial scars was scary, looked like a psycho case. Okay, I suppose you've checked entry points for passport ID, surveillance camera routine, the whole 9 yards? You bet! Airports, including rental car agencies, local and in Venice, plus Graz up across the Austrian border. The 2 main roads to Cortina. Italian agents are going over all entry point surveillance film for matches as we speak, but favor the Austrian angle. Figure the bad guys bought the rifle on the black market up there, disassembled it, stowed it in luggage. Local agents say border security is a bit lax during ski season. Dressed as skiers, they probably snuck into Italy without setting off alarms. Authorities doubt they drove over from Venice. Good chance the border cameras caught them. Probably traveling under assumed names with phony passports. Like they'd use their real name like I would on my covert operations. Pussies. But we'll probably get a country of origin out of it. I like the Dubai angle. If I plotted this out, I'd have given that prospect top consideration. Good probability. We've got a line of irons in the fire, Biff! Some good leads. Here's what's bugging me. How did the bloody assassins know we'd be on top of the Tefana Piste on New Year's morning? That's a big friggin' mountain. We were pinpointed, time, and place. Good question. I have a hunch, and I'm checking out. Wouldn't it be checking it out? I didn't misread that. Care to share it? Give me until tomorrow, boss, okay? Sure. I have another key question tied in with the other puzzle. Who tipped them off I would be visiting Patricia in Cortina in the first place? Did you sweep her chalet for bugs? Is the Pope a Catholic? Sure did, top to bottom. Place is squeaky clean. So then, who set me up? Very few knew about this trip.
I'm working on that too, Biff. Sleep on it, okay?
And I believe that is where we will leave our intrepid heroes in this exciting, high-octane journey inside a hospital. For the glory of America, we will continue this story next week. So tune in, 8 p.m. Eastern, whatever time, America time. As always, my friends, stay locked, stay loaded, stay America.